A very special conversation as always. It is with Amit Syngle of Asian Paints, and this one comes after 2 years of disruption in the paint industry, the previous conversation that we had, and from there to a new place as well. So a lot to speak with. Amit, usually you speak only after quarterly results, but I'm glad that I got your time. And I know you're always candid on interviews, but this time around you have to promise to be even more candid. Will you?
You can expect anything from me.
Perfect. So let's start with, the last 2 years, so much that has happened. From an Asian Paint standpoint, from a consumer business standpoint, from the environment standpoint, from competition, so much has happened. What consumed you most over the last 2 years?
See, I think the best thing was that, this time was very, very exhilarating because we felt that, there were lots happening in the marketplace. There was lots happening at the competitive ends to that extent, and the market was not very great from a point of view of a demand perspective. So I think there were challenges all across in terms of what came in, and what possibly occupied my attention was that during these times, how do we really navigate the brand and really take it ahead and look at possibly playing to our strengths and really seeing that we are scoring centuries as we kind of do stuff.
The street was also fairly on the tenterhooks over the last 2 years. In the history of Asian Paints stock market performance, the last 2 years were perhaps one of the darkest when it came to returns or negative returns, etc. So at that point in time, again, like I said, what occupied your mind space more? Was it the dealers of Asian Paints which were being taken away by others? Was it, the employees of Asian Paints which were being taken away by others? Was it the consumer sentiment itself which was lower? You had also spoken about this, low correlation between consumption GDP and GDP at large. So all these factors that played out, what took your mind space the most?
See, I think it was the whole area of strategizing in terms of that if you have to deal with this environment, everything is important. It's not solely that if we take care of the dealers, that's something which is what is the end result. We had to look at in terms of from the point of view of the brand, the innovation in terms of what we bring, playing to the distribution strengths which we have, the technological strengths which we bring onto the table, and also lead the game from a point of view of executional excellence. Because this was a time when possibly, the brand can show its best in the market, and therefore what occupied my mind was only one word: excellence everywhere.
All right, and 2 years later, as you stand, consumer sentiment is at the inflection point of improvement. Competitive intensity, while it stays, the disruptor is not the disruptor anymore, is an incumbent. And at the same time, you have a lot of your business excellence, etc., consolidated. So from where we are, how do the next 2 years look to you?
So I think, first of all, what we are looking at is really doing many things in terms of the market, which possibly is a step forward from what we have been doing to that extent. So the first of these things is that continue kind of building the brand to new heights. And in that perspective, we recently just tied up with Indian Cricket. We are the official partners, color partners for BCCI and for the Indian home cricket. And we are doing initiatives like this to kind of really see that today, whether it is a top of mind awareness or it's a share of search, Asian Paints is really the tops in terms of really continues to be the tops in terms of doing that. And in that regard, we are also looking at strategizing very differently. We think that today is the right moment in terms of looking at a regionalization of your strategy, where you can't be looking at one national strategy which kind of comes to fore. And therefore, another initiative which we have taken is regionalization, where we are saying that each state, each region has its own nuance, add the culture, the design.
But isn't that something that Asian Paints always did with so many regional ads? I remember those Pongal packs as well, which were small for just those bulls, etc. What is different this time?
No. So the regionalization place is now very different because you're looking at seeing at people's choices. You're trying to appeal to the culture of the region very, very strongly from a point of view of saying that now even our packs are regional. Okay. Now, no one has attempted that across the global arena in terms of looking at it. We have regional packs which appeal to the culture, design, and so on and so forth. We have regional colors which appeal to only that community in a very strong way to that extent in terms of what's coming in. And not only that, the whole nuance in terms of how we are seeing people see decor in those regions, we are playing to that bit because we feel that today, I think IPL has created a lot of regionalization to that extent, and people are really region proud, and we are appealing to that pride in a very strong way. So that's one very big area in terms of propelling the brand and seeing that we put the brand equity right up front and a strategy which possibly gets us right into the homes.
So what does this mean in terms of numbers? You this year have guided for mid-single digit sort of revenue growth almost high single digit, low double digit volume growth. How long before we get to double digit volume growth and double digit revenue growth from an industry standpoint?
So if you look at even now, while you are seeing some shoots in terms of the demand, we are not seeing that there is belligerence, there is full exhilaration coming into the market to that extent. We feel that today the rural markets are just coming back, even the urban centers are just trying to show some spark. I feel that possibly it will take some time before we really get onto the parameter of really double digits and so on and so forth.
How long will it take?
It's very difficult to say, but I would say that possibly another 2 quarters is something we need to kind of watch out for sure in terms of what we are looking at. So therefore, right now, I think the whole peg is in terms of saying that we continue to grow higher than the market, and that's the pitch in terms of what we would take.
And you haven't been doing so for the last few quarters, and now you're confident of doing that, right?
The first 2 quarters of this year, we have grown higher than the market to that extent. And as you look at the H1, we have grown much higher than the market overall.
So you will continue to gain market share?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, what about, you strengthened some of your internal sourcing with backward integration, also looking to diversify in the Middle East with the new capex that you've announced out there as well. So all these factors, how much will that add to your savings and how much of that will add to your international revenue as well?
So see, it's a very calculated move in terms of what we have taken from a point of view of looking at backward integration and also looking at saying that we are literally self-sufficient with respect to some of our core raw materials to that extent. And today what we have put in Fujairah in Dubai is a white cement plant of almost about 2.75 lakh tons capacity. It kind of really suffices us for possibly some of our products which we are selling in India to that extent, and it kind of gives us a lot of cost excellence which comes in to that extent, and that's been one aim. The second area has been the area of what we can do in terms of the international market. So we are marketing the product now, right now in UAE, parts of Asia, and now going to Africa in terms of looking at it to that extent. So the idea is that possibly, take that space, which is very important for us. At the same time, keep on adding to the cost excellence part in India, which is just a start. The second thing which comes in is even more in terms of what we will do as we kind of unleash in the first quarter of next year.
Which will be what?
We are looking at a new emulsion. So we have a 3,000 crore facility which is being put up at Dahej. So we basically start that facility, and that is something which possibly in the world there are only 4 or 5 suppliers to that extent. It's the first time Asian Paints is invoking the technology, and it's a new age emulsion, environment friendly, something which really gives us a lot of cost excellence, and not only that, but some very innovative products.
You're speaking about premiumization as an important theme for you guys, but economy is still the bedrock, right? What is it that you're doing to ensure that you are leader there, you are growing there, and you are profitable there, and not losing out on earnings despite the growth?
So see, Asian Paints has always been known to create categories, okay, and we have now really approached the category of distempers also by launching a product called Neo. So it is a different category called latex in terms of what we have introduced, so that we are able to galvanize the people and upgrade them from distemper to kind of using this latex. And I think this is something which is a big step, because it's a large bucket in that economy segment in terms of what comes in. Similarly, when you look at the premium and luxury segments, we have been launching a huge number of variants so that we are able to kind of, in that pyramid, upgrade the people to the next best solution in terms of what they can get in. And not only that, from a premium to luxury, we are invoking this brand called Nilaya now. We've introduced a product called Nilaya Arc in the market, a Nilaya Natural. And these are all super luxury products where we are kind of showing to people that even in the premium category, you can get one wall with this luxurious product which kind of adorns your home to that extent. So the entire thing is in terms of looking at that there is total upgradation happening at all levels in terms of what we can do. In a sense, you can really push the pyramid upwards.
So safe from here on, post the next 2 quarters of still some wait and watch from a consumer standpoint, going forward, the difference between value and volume will narrow because of the premium thing that you're talking about. Is that a possibility?
So we have spoken of that gap being about 4 to 5%. I think that gap will remain, because
Throughout?
I've always maintained, because the economy is a very, very big segment, okay? And today, if you want to, really reduce that gap to 2%, you will talk of degrowing in the economy segment to that extent. So I would say that 4 to 5% is a reasonable bet in terms of looking at maintaining that band, at the same time having a strong product mix.
And that still holds with 18 to 20% 20% margins, because now whatever savings you will get, you will deploy it back towards building the brand, building growth.
Absolutely.
So say high single digit sort of revenue growth, double digit volume growth, and 18 to 20% margins is the new normal for Asian Paints?
So that's the margin guidance which we have always maintained, and I think the great part is that despite all what we have seen in the market, we have kept our head on the shoulders in terms of what we are doing. We've not kind of taken the whole route of discounting or pricing in terms of that, but we've taken the route in terms of building the brand and playing to our strengths.
What are you most proud of over the last 2 years?
I think the fact that we have been able to kind of really build the brand to a new high, and what we have been able to kind of get nuances and being very strongly related with home as a brand which no other brand is. So I would say that Asian Paints' whole attempt to kind of really get into the consumer's mind has been very, very strong, and we think we are appropriating home more than ever before.
What are you most disappointed by over the last 2 years? What is the one thing what do you regret the most over the last 2 years?
I would say that from a point of view of saying that we would have liked to grow much faster. I think that is something which possibly I regret to that extent. I think we could have possibly put more drivers in terms of looking at what we could have driven the market far more strongly. But I think given the circumstances, I would say it has been quite good in terms of what we have performed.
You yourself have your ear very close to the ground, in fact feet on street. You take over 300 flights every year, know every dealer by their name, every dealer by their family members, etc. I think it's something that is indoctrinated in Asian Paints culture. What have you noticed over the last 2 years, what Asian Paints has done versus what competition has done? What have you done to ensure that your dealerships stay while within the guardrails of the law?
So we felt that one of the big things which has held by us is the relationships. It's not only about business, it's not only about margins, it's not about profitability. It's about relationships, it's your personalization, it's your ability to kind of really be empathetic about the business in terms of what you're dealing in. And I think that's something which I have tried, that it's not only me, the face of Asian Paints, but my entire leadership and my people who believe in that relationship very, very strongly. And that is something which I think is the trump card which Asian Paints hold.
One of the things, if I looked at pure business strategy, if a disruptor had to come and take some share from the incumbents, the obvious thing to do, given the long history that incumbents would have, is say that this is the paint of the old and we are the guys who are the paints of the young. And that's understandably some of the peers who've done that, right? How do you navigate or how do you mitigate that strategy?
See, at the end of it, the brands, the whole area of legacy and trust is a very big thing. There can be new disruptors, but if a new disruptor doesn't have a story in terms of why the new brand is a disruptor, it fades out very, very fast.
And you think they don't?
I don't think so. Okay. So I feel that today, the very fact that we came up with a campaign which is warranty, okay, which was just speaking about that every second home in India has been painted by Asian Paints, and that's a legacy you have. And what we brought in possibly along with that was saying that we are appealing to every generation, be it a Gen Z in terms of what they kind of look at to that extent. So it's not about being just old. It is about being what things which you are putting into the market as a strength, because you have the strength to do it, as well as you have the thought process in terms of bringing about the change.
And it's not just them, right? It's not just the disruptor. It's also the other incumbents, because everyone who's entering the industry right now, they respect you. Obviously, they say that we want to aim at being the number 2 player in the country. But when everyone is looking at the number 2 place, the number 2 also wants to ensure that they are number 2, and the number 3 also wants to ensure that they are not ceding any ground. So that on the whole becomes like a big pressure cooker situation for the industry. Have you faced that as well?
I think this pressure has always been there. If I look back last 2 decades, it's been always there. Just that today the number of players who are coming and trying to take a dig at it is much more to that extent. And I think that's something which is good, because it also as a leader keeps us on toes in terms of thinking what is the differential thing in terms of what you are kind of really talking of. And that's why I keep on saying that, we will keep on creating trends. People have to make case studies out of it.
For me personally, one of the things which is a perpetual disappointment from an Asian Paints standpoint is the non-paints home decor business.
Sure.
It's definitely not gone down the way analysts expected, perhaps not gone down the way you expected it as well. Some of the bolt-on acquisitions that were made did not go down well. They were perhaps strategic missteps, so to say. Some of the targets that you've given haven't been met. And for a company the size of Asian Paints, any new foray one would have imagined would be big, bold, and something not very different from what
Sure.
others would do in the paint industry.
Yeah.
So what was the problem there?
So I feel that, the way we anticipated the market, we were here not fighting any organized competition. We were fighting unorganized sector. And what we didn't realize in the unorganized sector is that the flexibility of pricing, the flexibility of the way they are able to kind of regionalize the product, I think was something which was very, very high. So I think it has taken us some time. We have put about 70 beautiful home stores across the country. The stores are doing well. But when you compare to the size of what we do in coatings, obviously the size is very, very small in terms of what's happening. And what you say is right. Some of the acquisitions which we did, we kind of grew them in the first 2-3 years, but then we were not able to sustain that kind of a buoyancy in terms of what happened to that extent. But as we see it, I think it's an integral part of our strategy, because we feel that if you own homes, okay, one of the big things which Asian Paints does is that as part of Har Ghar, you can't just own surfaces, you have to own spaces. And today decor gives us that big rope in terms of looking at owning spaces. And we feel that that's a very big differentiator for us, because if you were to kind of put all the brands today, okay, only one brand today appropriates home, and that is Asian Paints. And that is where possibly the decor strategy is still very, very relevant to us in terms of where it stands. Yes, we have a task in terms of how we need to kind of put it into shape and get it back rolling to that extent, but we are committed to it.
And how long will that commitment last, and at what point will you believe that, okay, we've put enough resources, mind space, and ideas behind it, but maybe it's just time to pull the plug?
So we are giving ourselves another 2 years in terms of looking at really getting behind it in terms of what we want to achieve, what we want to do to that extent, and really seeing that we can bring excellence in those categories, which is what Asian Paints style of businesses.
And what would the end of those 2 years look like for you to call it a success in terms of numbers?
So we are looking at a certain contribution which that decor piece which kind of gives us, and we are looking at something like about a 7 to 8% contribution to our overall business in terms of what will be there to that extent. And that is something which possibly would be an indication that we are on a right trajectory.
And in coatings itself, what is your aspiration? Because right now, obviously, a large part comes in from repainting. Then there is a certain part which comes in from, the new buildings which are announced. And thereafter, there is this new TAM which is opened up, which is government-led infra.
Yeah.
Do you have an ideal mix here?
So see, when you look at today, I think the trend which we are seeing is that the whole area of the industrial and the B2B space is changing quite a bit, and that is really expanding, given the fact that you're talking of private capex and you're talking of government investment, which is coming in a very big way, which I believe will continue to that extent. And therefore, one of the big focus which we are taking is basically the B2B and the industrial business, in terms of where our contributions are relatively less as compared to possibly some of the competition in terms of what is there. So that's the new piece in terms of the growth trajectory in terms of what we are taking in a very big way to that extent, apart from the fact that the retail excellence will continue in terms of what we are doing to that extent. And that would kind of really see that it kind of firmly pegs us amongst the top 5 global players in the world.
So if I had to look at Asian Paints 3 years from now, what according to you would the revenue mix be? How much comes in from decorative? How much comes in from B2B? In decorative, how much comes in from retail decorative, and how much comes in from, say, government infra or all the housing projects, etc.? How much comes in from home decor, and how much comes in from international?
See, roughly, if you look at it, basically the whole coatings landscape, overall, when we say from a point of view of a decorative, that will still lie in a band of about 78 to 80% in terms of as I see it. And out of that, possibly about a 20% contribution would come in from the B2B business to that extent. When you look at the industrial business, I think that will continue to kind of go on to a realm of something like about 8 to 10%, and global would be another 10% to that extent.
All right. And you will still be 18 to 20% margins at that point.
That's what we are kind of dwelling at very strongly.
When we were looking at disruption in the industry, when we were looking at everyone's strength in the industry, there was brand, there was obviously capacity, there was distribution, and then there was something known as tinting machines. Now, everyone has practically everything, and there is no particular differentiator. So what then would now be the next leg of differentiation or leadership for the paint industry?
So first of all, I think the differentiation lies in terms of your entire engine in terms of how it works. I think the whole thing of your executional excellence is a very, very big differentiator in terms of what you are able to do to that extent. And therefore, that is something which is going to continue, where we are going to invest in a very big way. We are investing in technology at a very big level. We have today almost about 160 patents in terms of what we have got. And that's a very big area of focus in terms of saying that we will have products which have no matches in the market to that extent, which will always keep us ahead to that extent. Second, we are getting onto the bandwagon of looking at today catching on AI very big time, because that is something which possibly gives us a huge mantle in terms of seeing how we are looking at our consumer segmentation, how are we looking at the consumer.
Can you give me a use case for AI?
How we are looking at the homes. For example, today, a person who uses our painting service, tomorrow I could use AI just to know the preferences that customer has. And the moment I launch a new product, I can really carve the entire house in the new product and offer it to him rather than just a mailer in terms of saying I have a new product. So I think it can really look at hyper segmentation and hyper personalization, which would basically come in from AI in a very big way to that extent. And not only that, we are leveraging that in our manufacturing piece in terms of saying how we can basically do a cost optimization which comes in terms of predictability, which can be far more stronger in terms of come in. And the last area is the forecasting accuracy, which I think can give us a huge kind of elevation from the point of view of looking that you've got the right product at the right place at the right time in a much better way in terms of what we are handling it today.
All right, let's wrap it up with some fiery questions. Okay?
Yes, for sure.
Let's go. 50,000 crore revenue on Asian Paints by when?
Okay. Definitely for the next 4 years.
In the next 4 years. Amit Syngle stays in Asian Paints for the next 5-6 years at least?
I think from my mindset, eternally.
Eternally. Wonderful. What do you think you would want to leave Asian Paints as?
So first of all, I'm not thinking of retirement at all to that extent. I feel that what I leave behind is the passion, the legacy, and really saying that the brand continues to kind of galvanize and propel itself into a new pavilion.
Services will be how much of your revenue going forward?
So services today, as we see the beautiful home painting service, we spoke about it last time as well. It continues to be the world's largest painting service in terms of what we have culminated. And we see that going forward, we would like that at least 10 to 12% is something which our services continue to contribute.
And one piece of advice that you would like to give some of your competitors?
I would say that the advice is that when you kind of operate in the market, okay, operate with a certain value, a certain ethic, and look at possibly differentiating yourselves far more strongly rather than being me too in terms of the market.
And to the investors, what will you say, who've been sitting on 2 years of losses?
I think the investors will see that this is a brand which they will have to watch out for, because there are lots of things which are coming, and we think that possibly we have our clear eyes on the stakeholders and we will give them a good return.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amit.
Thank you.